Hello and welcome to Get Decked, the video series where I make budget Magic the Gathering decks for casual games night and to introduce friends and family members to the game. Another series of these Get Decked videos because people seem to like them. Something a little bit special though for the next 5 we've got coming up. So I hope you've enjoyed the dual decks we've looked at. I sort of said in the last dual deck videos what I'm going to do is basically break up dual decks and intersperse in the Get Decked. So we kind of have variety in content. But anyway, something a little bit special. For these next 5 Get Decked videos because so Thunder Junction has been and gone essentially. We've got Bloom Burrow coming up quite soon, and this was a set that I was actually quite looking forward to when it was announced because Weird West is a genre that I quite like, I quite enjoy, and I never really actually got a chance to really sit down and play any Thunder Junction just because I don't really get to play these days anyway. But I really liked the set, I love a lot of the cards in it. I kind of liked. I was kind of resistant to like the story focus on Oko and his little gang at first, but I saw like it was basically fine. But what I thought would be a fun thing to do with this because a lot of people in the comments for like the Get Decks asked me that oh yeah, what you should do is make kind of like old style like precons, like the intro packs and the old theme decks, but for recent sets, and that was a small project that was going on the subreddit for pre-constructed Magic, and we did sort of pre-constructed decks for 3 of the most recent sets at the time, which I think was like Brothers War, Dominaria, and I want to say All Will Be One. So we did like that was kind of like a little project there, just like if pre-constructed decks had existed. For these sets, like what might they look like? And I thought, what I'll do to sort of like say farewell to Thunder Junction is do exactly that. I'm going to make some pre-constructed decks for for that set. So it's going to be 5 decks, sort of an equal split of colors, like the intro decks used to be. Where it's sort of like 5 dual color decks, and they have an equal split of colors. So I thought I'd do that. So they're not going to be built exactly like intro packs, like they're not where it's massively high variety. When you have like a single copy of each rare and stuff, because basically then that's although I love intro packs. It's not indicative of like how the game is played. Like it doesn't use like play sets and stuff. There's not really, it's not as optimal as it could be. And we kind of want a deck that is like essentially fun to play while still being like decently, okay to play. Like you can rely on it doing its thing. So, with that in mind, we're going to look at 5 pre-constructed decks, or these Get Deck decks that I've made for Thunder Junction. So, the first one we're going to look at is Flashbang, which is white and blue. So, let's quickly remind ourselves of the Get Decked rules. So, these decks are 60 cards. They're designed for 1v1 games. Normally, I say no format restrictions, but we do have a restriction for these next 5 videos, which is we're going to use Thunder Junction cards only. That is just from the main set. That's not from like the Commander or like the Big Score like supplemental set. It's just the core Outlaw of Thunder Junction set. We build these with mostly commons and uncommons. We don't use any cards that cost more than $2 at time of recording to make it kind of affordable to assemble the deck. We limit ourselves to 12 different non-land cards, so that's a good mix of like variety and consistency, I think. Go with strong themes and low to mid complexity because these are based around basically like the draft archetypes, and just set design these days makes it actually really easy to put a deck together based on that. But just because it's a casual deck doesn't mean it has to be weak or bad. So let's take a look at Flashbang. So we've got 27 creatures, 9 instants, and 24 land. We've got a mana curve off to the side there. So yeah, let's just dive into it. So how are we winning? This is how I always like to do these videos. We discuss how we're winning, and then what helps us win, and then what can we do to stop our opponent winning. So the white-blue draft archetype for Thunder Junction was actually pretty interesting. So it's this whole thing where you basically didn't want to play spells on your turn because you would either get benefits for it or it was really pushing to do stuff during your opponent's turn. So in that regard, it's very sort of classic white-blue, like draw go, like kind of soft control deck. So if we look at Wrangler of the Damned here to show you what I mean. So 3 white and a blue for 1/4 with flash. So at the beginning of your end step, if you haven't cast a spell from your hand this turn, you make a 2/2 white spirit creature token with flying. So that's the wording we're focusing on here. A lot of them have this kind of thing of at the beginning of your end step, if you haven't cast a spell from your hand this turn, do something. So what this means is we can cast stuff during our opponent's turn. So a lot of the spells in here have either got flash or instant speed, so we can still play stuff. Or we've got a few cards with plot, as we'll see, which isn't casting spells from our hand, so it still means we can do stuff on our turn. So a really, really interesting mechanic actually, and honestly, the way it turned out, this is kind of honestly like a blue-white skies deck anyway, because blue-white typically is. We've got a lot of flyers in here, so that's kind of majorly how we're winning. But we, do have this little sub theme of like holding fire until our opponent's turn, and we maybe do a whole bunch of flash stuff or whatever. So we've got 3 Wrangler of the Damned, we've got 3 Stoic Sphinx, so 2 in double blue for a 5/3 with flash and flying, has hexproof as long as you haven't cast a spell this turn. Hexproof is, let's be honest, it's kind of an unfun mechanic because you've just got a card on the table that says like you can't interact with this. So I do like this trend that's been in recent years of conditional hexproof, or like hexproof that breaks once a condition that's been met. I think that's a really cool way of using it in a better way. So yeah, this guy is he's a big flyer. He's got flash, so he's always a cheeky surprise blocker if you need him to be. And yeah, he's got hexproof until you cast a spell, so he can be a massive pain to deal with. Yeah, just great. Just I think a really nice solid inclusion. And they've got 3 Dust Animus, so 1 and white for a 2/3 of flying, which is like a really good body for its cost anyway. And if you control 5 or more untapped lands, he enters the battlefield with 2 +1/+1 counters and a lifelink counter on it. So late game, this can be pretty big, and you can help build up to this because he has the plot ability, which was introduced in Thunder Junction. So plot is you can pay its plot cost and exile it from your hand, and then it stays in exile, and you can cast it as a sorcery on a later turn without paying its mana cost. So this is really, really cool. It's a really cool ability. It reminds me of Suspend all the way back from Time Spiral, and the fact that you're setting off to a side, and like when you need it, which I think is actually better, you've got more control over it than Suspend. You can cast it whenever you need to, which is really good because you could build up to 5 untapped lands, then cast it for free, and then it comes in, sees you've got 5 untapped lands, and then it goes up to being a 4/5 with lifelink. So yeah, but if you did need to cast it like early games as a 2/3 flyer for 2, then you absolutely could. So yeah, these 3 I feel like are the main like muscle of the deck, honestly. Then we've got 3 Holy Cows, 2 and a white for a 2/2 with flash flying. When it ends the battlefield, you gain 2 life and scry 1. So yes, we've come a very long way for 2 and a white just getting you a wild griffin these days. So yeah, we get a whole bunch of stuff. So this is really, really nice. So firstly, the flash goes along with all the effects of casting stuff during our opponent's turn. It's got a really nice ETB effect of just getting some life and scrying 1. It's a flyer. Yeah, it's just a really just solid little common to have in here. We've got 3 Jin of Fool's Fall, so 4 and a blue for 4/3 with flying and plot. So you can plot for 3 and a blue, and then you exile it and cast it again. This also like goes in with the blue-white archetype of not casting stuff from your hand, because if you do cast this after you've plotted it, it's being cast from exile, so you still then get all the benefits, which I think is a really clever way of like those rules interacting. I think it's really fun. But yeah, it's just a big flyer. Again, just I say, it is basically a blue-white skies deck with this extra kind of little mechanical twist to it, which I think is really fun. And then we've got 3 Prairie Dogs, 1 and white for a 2/2 with lifelink. At the beginning of your end step, if you haven't cast a spell from your hand this turn, you get a +1/+1 counter it, and then you play 4 and a white. Until end of turn, if you put 1 or more +1/+1 counters on a creature you control, you put an extra 1, essentially. So I don't know how often you use that ability, because it is kind of expensive, and you want to be holding on to mana to do stuff during like your opponent's turn. At the very least, this is a 2/2 for 2 with lifelink. And then gets a counter when you do the thing the deck wants to be doing anyway. So I wouldn't worry too much about that ability. Just take your Prairie Dog and just be happy with the he might get a counter. But yeah, it's mostly just like a nice early game play, I think. So now we're going to look at what helps us win. So this is usually things that help support the win condition. So it could be like buff spells, could be card draw, that kind of thing. So we've got 3 Gem Lightfoot Sky Explorers. So I believe this was the signpost uncommon for the draft archetype. So 2 white and a blue for a 3/3 flying and vigilance, which is just a solid body anyway. And the beginning of your own step, if you've held fire, you draw a card, which is really nice. Just again, you're doing exactly what the deck wants to be doing. It's a shame she's not got flash herself. I suppose then it'd be maybe a little bit too good. But yeah, I think really fine ability. And then we've got 3 Gazer Drake, so 2 in the blue for a 2/3 flying. Again, old Windrake looks at this and cries. But yeah, 2 in the blue for 2/3 flying. As long as it's not your turn, spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. So again, goes really well with all your flash stuff, makes it cheaper to cast during your opponent's turn. So yeah, this is another great inclusion. And also, like Gem, it's just another flyer, which just really helps out the winning in the air. And then a little dude on the ground, Canyon Crab. So one a blue for a 0/5, so nice. Like the Prairie Dog, like just nice early game play and like a pretty good like blocker. You can pay one a blue to give it +2, -2 to 10, which is always nice because it's a defensive creature that could threaten a kill if you pump it up. At the beginning of your end step, if you've held fire, you draw a card and discard a card. So not quite card draw, it's like card selection, but it's still fine. Like filter through to get what you absolutely need. So yeah, I like Canyon Crab. And then as a little buff spell, we've got Take Up the Shield, so 1 white instant speed. Obviously, we want an instant, so we can cast stuff during our opponent's turn and still, be able to cast our spells while getting our benefits of holding fire. You put a +1/+1 counter on target creature, it gets lifelink and indestructible in turn. So this is just a really nice little kind of buff spell. So now we're going to talk about what stops them winning. So this is like essentially like removal spells or ways to disrupt our opponent's game plan. So we've got 3 Bovine Intervention. So 1 white instant speed. You destroy an artifact or creature and they make a 2/2 white ox creature token. I always like these kind of like white kill spells where you give them something back, or like blue gets them as well sometimes. Most of the time, you giving them a token is better than whatever they had. So yeah, like for 2 mana to kill anything, and yeah, it's pretty great. I like it. Just a fairly solid removal spell. And they've got 3 Phantom Interference. So 1 blue plus because it was one of the new Spree spells. So Spree is kind of like how to describe Spree? It's kind of like it's either like a better version of Escalate, or it's like Kicker and Charms had like a baby, or like Entwine, I suppose. It's reminiscent of so many different past mechanics. So basically, what Spree means is you choose 1 or more of the additional costs. And that it just increases the cost of the spell. So for +3 to make it, so you make it 3 and a blue in total. You make a 2/2 white spirit creature token with flying, which is expensive, but it's fine. And then for +1, you can counter spell unless its controller pays 2. So you can do both options, or you can just do one. You have to choose one. However, like it can't be just like you just spend it for blue just to like get a spell out there, which does nothing. You have to do something. So typically, like they're like charms in the fact that their effects they're like they're kind of overcosted. These options, but what you're paying for is or like kicker, like the options are overcosted. What you're paying for is the versatility. Because obviously this is not as good as Mana Leak if you pay 1 and a blue to do the counter option, but it's still a counter spell, and it's expensive to make a 2/2 token for 4 mana. But again, at instant speed, and you're paying for the versatility. So I wanted to include these because I think these spree spells are pretty fun, and also I was limiting myself just to Thunder Junction cards, so it was it's kind of slim pickings in some areas. So we're just going to quickly talk about the mana base. This is quite straightforward. So we've got 4 Lonely Arios, which is the white-blue cactus land. So it comes into play tapped, does 1 damage to an opponent when it enters, and you tap it for white or blue, which is fine. I really like these little desert lands, little ping lands. I think they're pretty fun. Really help, obviously, with the other theme in Thunder Junction of committing crimes when you target opponents or their stuff. So yeah, these are really fun. You'll see these again in the upcoming decks. And then 10 plains and 10 islands. So I'd love to know what you think about this particular Flashbang deck. Like, did you play this archetype? Like, if you went to a Thunder Junction pre-release, did you end up playing this archetype? Did it sort of go the way you intended? Or like, what do you think about this idea to do Thunder Junction decks in overall? I suppose we've got like 4 more of these coming up, so hopefully you enjoy them. But yeah, I hope you join me next time. I'm going to do another one of these. So thanks for watching, listening, and have a great day.